If you've been watching my channel for a while, you must have knew I'm going to include these two here. Brilliantly portrayed by Elizabeth Moss and Stephen Hart respectively, the inexperienced rookie policewoman and a dangerous cannibalistic serial killer had this immediate connection upon seeing each other, and then it just went on, even though only subtly. From the intense stares these two exchange, while Mellor is being dragged to the cell, through Bannerman's a bit too enthusiastic approach to the gruesome killer's case, down to the various interactions these two engaged in, while Mellor took the form of her two co-workers, it's obvious that there's certain desire, or lust at least they share. This episode of the TV show is really fun to watch, because it deals with a shapeshifter, which is only revealed as the episode nears its second half, allowing us, the viewers, to see more details upon second, third or fourth rewatch, and as we understand that from certain point onwards, the two co-workers and the boss of Bannerman are in fact Mellor himself, it becomes obvious that he has certain hots for her, just as she clearly has for him. I mean, come the hell on. When she's asking Mellor, who she believes to be Marty, what is Mellor like and starts asking about his looks, voice, mannerisms, and so on, we clearly see on her face and in her eyes, that her questions aren't motivated by a simple curiosity. Later on, when she suggests Mellor, who she still believes to be Marty, that Dwayne kills not from some sadistic need to inflict pain, but in order to feel sexually aroused by the dominance over victim, Marty, who is actually Mellor in disguise, seems suddenly embarrassed, like oh, shit, she got me moment. As the tension grows and Danny slowly starts to suspect something's not right, both Marty and her other co-worker, Mattingly, suddenly start creeping closer to her, with Mattingly even trying to bite her neck, before she dodges, with neither of them showing any sexual interest with Bannerman whatsoever before Mellor came to the station. It's clear something's not right, and when Danny discovers the cell was open all along and then finds dead bodies of Mattingly, Marty, and her superior, Williams, it becomes clear as day to both us and her, what's been really going on. When Mellor drops his axe, his sadistic side clearly mixes up with certain desire to young and pretty Bannerman, as he mockingly taunts and compliments her, before attacking her and sinking his teeth into her flesh. It's what turns him on, yes, but we clearly see Danny turns him on as well. Obviously, she is a cop, hell-bent on serving the law and protecting people, and he is not only a cannibalistic serial killer, but also a shape-shifting ritualistic sorcerer who not only killed many innocent people, he also killed her co-workers and surrogate Williams, who was the only person who had faith in her and always had her back. There may be animalistic desire to fuck each other between them, and there indeed is a mutual fascination. But there's no way in heaven or hell these two would go out from the station holding hands and kissing. To Danny, locked alone in the station with a highly dangerous man who not only wants to eat her and very well can do it, but also can wear the face and voice of whoever's heart he consumed, toying with her and torturing her physically, as well as on psychological level, the situation is simple, to kill, or be killed, 'cause she cannot let a man as dangerous as Mellor out to harm more people. Eventually, she devises a simple, yet brilliant, plan to hide away and smear highly toxic rat poison over her wounds and body, before Mellor drags her out and starts eating her again. Knowing she won't get out of the station alive, she sacrificed herself to fill Mellor's digestive system with strong toxin, breaking up his guts and painfully killing him. Eventually, none gets out of the station alive, but the dangerous killer is out, and that's an heroic deed of Bannerman. Mulan. I see this as a great wasted opportunity with these two. As soon as Mulan, dressed in her elderly father's armor, claiming to be her own unexisting brother, entered the army, there was a young guy who she seemed to take a liking in. Obviously, it only annoyed her further, as she couldn't allow herself for such feelings, wanting to pass as a man, and young Hong who only saw her as a new interesting guy to chat with, until he saw her awesome battle skills and felt downright amazed. But nothing aside it, as he still thought Mulan was a guy. Mutual exercises, mock fightings and sharing house obviously made these two bond more and more, but as it was punishable by death to sneak a woman into an army, Hong, whose mind wasn't even crossed by the possibility of his new badass colleague being actually a girl. Therefore, as we see, no real feelings have been developed, aside the feelings of brotherhood that Hong, who indeed seemed to be more willing to share with Mulan than with any other member of the squad. As Mulan began to embrace her innate ability to utilize Qi, a living force that gives life and vitality to everyone, projecting it into her fighting skills, and therefore started performing feats that common folk would even consider magic, the admiration in Honghu's eyes only grew, as he genuinely believed he's dealing with the most self-motivated, hard-working guy he ever met. It's not until Mulan's first standoff against a witch, Shenyang, when she finally has a change of heart. Xian claims that lying makes Mulan weaker and embracing her true self and true identity is what truly makes one powerful. Mulan then decides to go off into the battle, now revealing her really gender, and her newfound motivation leads her to use her wits to bury the enemy forces in a snow and then go back to rescue her all teammates, Honghu included. Mulan then reveals her real identity to everyone, which leads her superior to exile her, only showing the mercy of not beheading her for treason on the spot, because she saved their lives. Honghu, though, seems confused, and when Mulan returns to inform the general of Bori Khan's plans to overthrow the emperor and promises to help them prevent it, it's Honghu who first stands up to her, proudly declaring he believes her and is willing to fight by her side, despite her being woman. Moreover, due to her extreme courage and bravery, her teammates start to perceive her as a sort of a leader, despite them all still being subordinate to one general. This leads Mulan, Honghu and others to create a strong resistance for Bori's forces, until Mulan fights and kills Bori Khan, all while Honghu bravely fights tooth and nail, now not only for his country's safety, but also for a woman he grew to admire. Nevertheless, they just pretty much cheated death at a war, and even though Honghu's eyes speak volumes, during their final goodbye, it's clear that for Mulan, who went through so much during that time, now the best idea would be to go and live with her family she sacrificed so much for. This instance may be controversial, as it involves pretty much an unnatural relationship of father and his daughter, but hear me out. In 2011 remake of Conan the Barbarian, we're introduced to a new villain with a motive very unlike the one we know from the original, because this time, the bad guy is pretty much just a family man, willing to murder entire villagers, just to find one sacred object that promises to bring his dead wife back to life. The fact that he wants to rule the world with the iron fist with his resurrected wife, sure, but you cannot deny the guy has his values. The same, however, cannot be said about his only child, a young and seductive sorceress, Marike, who at first appears to side with her father in the matter of resurrecting her mother to rule as a family, until we learn that as Marike became adult woman, she might have developed some quite inappropriate feelings towards her own father. As gross as it sounds, you need to keep in mind that throughout entire Marike's childhood, from the moment she witnessed her own mother being burned alive for witchcraft, all she had in this world was her father, and they both were hellbent on ruling the world as one family. This twisted desire could make the father-daughter duo much closer than they knew, and sooner or later, young witch started to see her father as more than a parental figure, and her admiration crossed onto the uncanny territory. Marike got the courage to ask her father what will happen if his wife will not be resurrected, but the warlord doesn't even want to hear of such possibility. To comfort him, Marike says that she has her mother's blood and her powers soon will be as strong as these of her late mother. She suggestively claims that she can be to Collar everything that her mother was when she was alive, hinting at her wanting to be both a support and right hand, as well as a lover. During this interaction, we clearly see the young witch attempts to seduce her father, as she herself pushes the caring gesture of Collar into that of a sexual desire, but as we see just seconds later, even though Collar loves Marike, he's not interested in her in a sexual way. Pushing her away right after she sucked on his thumb, he proclaimed that even though Marike is so much like her late mother, she will never be her, and he's still in love with the woman he watched burning alive, when Marike was still a child. Nevertheless, I believe this gesture did not dissuade the witch from attempting greater closure, as the next scene we see the warlord and his daughter, they sleep in the same bed, with Makik wearing nothing but a thin nightgown, probably another attempt to seduce her father. Eventually, Marike helps her father to kidnap the maiden that comes from a special bloodline, whose blood shall activate the artifact and upon being worn by Collar, will grant him any wish he desired, which in his case, will be to resurrect Marike's mother. Even though she'd much rather see herself as her father's lover, we still see she wants the family unit as much as Collar. At the end, Collar battles Conan, who came to rescue his love interest, and frees her, forcing Marike to fight her. During this fight, we see the witch wants to kill her and then presumably blame it on accident, so she can be with his father as a second wife. Still, it goes to waste as they both get killed by Conan at the end.
As soon as young Susie entered the door of the German dance academy, the experienced French dance instructor, Mrs. Blanc seemed to take almost supernatural notice of her, sensing she's performing on the higher floor and being the one to hire young Banyan into the academy herself. There's no doubt that these two women immediately had some chemistry together, but whether or not this chemistry is purely professional, motherly-like or sensual wasn't yet all that clearly stated. We see that Blanc used Susie's body as a vessel for her own power to break a rebel dancer's bones, pretty much using her as a puppet, but as time progresses, Viva seems to see Susie less and less like a pawn, as she probably sees all the other girls in the academy, and more like a human being. The witches' plan is clear, to get a new, fresh and young vessel for the soul of their elderly witch queen mother Marcos, and seeing Susie's extreme talent, physicality and fitness, Blanc agrees for her to be slowly prepared for that role by the coven. What neither Blanc nor Banyan know, is that Susie secretly is an incarnation of the most powerful witch, Mater Suspiriorum, the one who the coven falsely believes to be Helena Marcos. Unbeknownst to the coven, each ritual they perform on Susie, brings her closer not to Marcos, but to her true self, Suspiriorum. As Blanc telepathically sends the creepy visions of what's secretly going on behind closed doors of the academy to Susie as she's asleep, the dreams accidentally trigger the core memory of who Susie truly is, and that growing connection to her true self begins to manifest in both psychological, spiritual and physical way. Of course, Blanc is completely oblivious to this fact, and when she sees how far had Susie progressed, seemingly on her own, with only slight help from the coven's rituals, she becomes fascinated in her, and unsurprisingly, the bond between the two titans. Soon, the energy of Mater Suspiriorum is so great in Susie, that her eyes change color, her personality becomes more mature and reserved, and she develops actual telepathic powers, rivaling those of Blanc. Seeing all of this, the instructor begins to suspect that something is not right and doesn't want to sacrifice her to become Marcos' body instead. Presumably thinking Susie is a fellow witch, like her, and developing genuine feelings for her, Blanc wants to stop the ritual, but Marcos nearly decapitates her, leaving her in a state close to death, when Susie enters the room and begins acting strangely. Soon, the young American reveals to the hag-old, deformed crone that Marcos had become, that she is real Mater Suspiriorum and all the impostors and those supporting them would be dead. She summons death, and with its power, she murders everyone who supported Marcos and mercy kills all the poor friends of her who got injured beyond recognition in the gruesome rituals of the coven. At the end, Susie, or should I say, Suspiriorum, leaves the academy, and it's unclear what happened to Blanc, but the two part ways, and it's unclear if they will see each other again, if Blanc is still alive.
The most powerful witch of this universum is cold and stone-hearted, but she wasn't always like that. After her lover, John Gregory, left her upon seeing that she practices witchcraft, she turned into dark arts, devouring children and drinking their blood for power. And yet, even someone like her, a cold-blooded killer, got a man giving her longing stares, and this man was her second-in-command, the dragon shape-shifting warlock Radu. From the moment Radu shows up in Malkin's lair, to grant her with a gift of his finest assassins, he appears serious and restrained, but when he catches Malkin alone, without the company of her sister or niece, he thinks it's a good moment to start showing his beloved queen that he may love her in more ways than just that of a solitaire to his leader. Sadly for him, be it from the hurt and lack of belief in love from Malkin's side, or from her disinterest in him specifically, the witch queen rejects his advances, showing that she respects him, but wishes nothing more from their relationship. Too bad this scene was cut off from the movie, as it would add more depth to their relationship and would also explain why Radu wished to tackle Malkin's ex, Gregory, later on himself, attempting to kill him.
Boy, oh boy, I love these two and I hate that they had such a little screen time together. Partially because Ginger was cursed and was transforming into ferocious werewolf, and partially because the most dialogue the hunter ever had in the movie was with Ginger's sister, Bridget, who he appears to show zero signs of deeper interest in. To be honest, the only scene of any romantic or sexual undertone between these two was when Ginger is already infected by a bite of a werewolf, and in one of her fever dreams, she sees herself looking for Bridget in the house given to them for a stay, and coming across the hunter instead. In the dream, The young Cree man reveals he was going to visit her to heal her wounds, after which these two passionately kiss. Sadly though, the dream ends with Ginger seeing blood on Hunter's face that came from her own mouth. Aside that one short dream sequence, that is more of a showcase on how Ginger's werewolf curse rapidly affects her libido, rather than a show of genuine connection between her and the hunter. The only real-life interaction she had with him was when he released Bridget from the bear trap and then took them to the fur traders, and later on when she sees him being the one who killed a werewolf that was trying to attack her. Probably that's when young woman started to admire the young native man, but sadly, the amount of interactions these two share is very restricted, and even if they interact, the focus is on getting the curse off Ginger, and later on when it's revealed that the curse cannot be lifted, when Hunter urges Bridget to kill Ginger, but gets killed by Bridget instead. Just like in case of Mulan and Honghu, I think it's a great potential that sadly got wasted, but this time not by writing, but by limited screen time. I mean, yes, you can only show so much in the restricted amount of minutes, but adding one scene and then dropping the plot completely was disappointing. Was it Ginger's werewolf sex drive speaking, when she dreamt about making out with the handsome Hunter? Or was it the admiration after he saved her and Bridget's life from jaws of a werewolf? Would Bridget develop the same sexual urge towards him as her sister if she was infected instead? Are there any feelings Hunter may have for Ginger, but quenches them down because she turns into a monster and in his opinion must be killed? Well, we'll never know.
The unlikely heroine from the first Hellraiser movie, who got unwittingly dragged into the battle of forces of hell, due to trauma endured during the events, is much more collected and reserved in her second appearance in the franchise. Changes too do happen in the heart of previously cold and emotionless hell priest, nicknamed Pinhead, who we learn was once human, and about this fact, our heroine reminded him in this movie, a move that changed the tide of the battle between her and crazed Dr. Channard, turned into Cenobite by Kirsty's deceased mother-in-law, Julia. When Channard uses an autistic patient of his to solve the lament configuration and summon the Cenobites, Pinhead correctly assumes that the girl didn't wanted to summon them, but instead it was the desire of Channard, and they go out to look for him instead. Seeing what's happening, Kirsty runs into the portal, looking for the girl, but finds the Cenobites instead, with the Hell Priest, remarking that it cannot be a coincidence that they meet again. Returning to Channard's office, Kirsty and her investigator friend find proof that he summoned Julia from hell, and Kirsty also finds a picture of a war veteran named Elliot Spencer, who she recognizes as Pinhead. When Cenobite turned Channard goes after her and the other girl, they seek help of the Cenobites, and Kirsty shows the photograph of Elliot to Pinhead, reminding him that he was once human. Pinhead, or rather Elliot, looks at Kirsty longingly and claims he remembers, which pushes him to fight to keep her and the teen girl safe when Channard arrives. As Kirsty and the teen run away, Kirsty and Elliot lock eyes and Spencer gives her a knowing smile, nodding in thank you gesture, and rushes to fight Channard as the two girls escape. Just by this look and smile alone, you can see the chemistry between them, honestly.
Ward and Lavinia met accidentally, when Ward was on his way to his work in Lavinia's home place, while she was at the forest, performing lesser banishing pentagram ritual and petitioning the angels to heal her mother, who's battling cancer, and showing a desire to get her the hell out of here, with both wishes soon being fulfilled in a way she'd never ask for, as the mysterious color is making its way to the earth. Ward notices her and wishes to ask her for directions, stopping her mid in her ritual, for which she's visibly angry about. She gives him the directions and he introduces himself and explains that he's hydrologist with a job around here and gives her his ID card. The next day, the meteorite hits Lavinia's garden, attracting the attention of local news, as well as Ward again, who appears at the scene to collect water samples and see how the extraterrestrial substance affected it.
During the visit, he's visibly interested in Lavinia and may be trying to impress her, while showing off his knowledge as he works with her father, Nathan, portrayed by forever awesome Nicolas Cage by the way, over the infected water well. As the time progresses and the surrounding area begins to change from the influence of the color, Ward obviously takes notice, as he constantly analyzes the water samples. Worried about Lavinia's well-being, he pays her a visit, but she sends him away, claiming she's fine and doesn't need help, all while looking visibly weak and sick, which worries the hydrologist even more. Lavinia's family are the ones to suffer the effects of the color the most, with her father slowly going insane, her mother growing distant and absent-minded, and her little brother constantly talking to someone she believes to be an imaginary friend. Lavinia is furious for her mother suggesting that she may have an eye for Ward, claiming she has no feelings for him, but as the evil color mutates her mother and younger brother into one deformed and insane being, the grudge is all over and Lavinia and the elder brother take care of her, while the father still spirals into greater madness. Ward comes back with the fellow sheriff, who find out a local hippie man dead from the influence of color, and they rush to help the gardener's family, but they arrive seeing Nathan killing his deformed wife, who he just threw Lavinia to be eaten by her, showing how unstable and insane he has become. During the escape attempt, Nathan aims at Lavinia but is shot dead by the sheriff. Ward wants Lavinia to go with him, but now under color's influence, Lavinia doesn't want to leave her father. Ward leaves, but after the sheriff gets killed by the color, he realizes he cannot leave Lavinia alone. He comes back and finds her completely possessed by the color, who shows him its homeland, before summoning a storm of energy and causing Lavinia to disintegrate on Ward's eyes as he watches helplessly. After Ward locks himself in Gardner's basement, the color explodes, leaving the area arid and vacant, and only thing reminding him of the occurrences of the past, as well as Lavinia herself, was her compass, the only thing that had left from her.
This pair is legendary and presumably one of the most adored couples in movies ever created, despite them never ending up together. Jareth, the cold and cruel, yet mischievous, Goblin King, appear in Sarah's room after the teen in her rage and anger expressed the desire for her infant brother to be taken away by his minions. Of course, not suspecting this to happen for real, Sarah is shocked and wants her brother back, to which Jareth reacts with anger, before giving her an ultimatum. Either she will go through the massive labyrinth surrounding his castle and reach his throne room before a set time period had passed, and he will give her the brother back, or if she fails, the brother will be forever changed into one of his servants. The sorcerer doesn't believe the girl would complete her task and is already excited for a new goblin slave in his kingdom. Sarah, though, is intelligent and manages to beat more and more of the twisted path, therefore Jareth uses his powers and sends his undercover agent to sabotage the girl's plans, all while slowly falling in love with her. Jareth keeps watching Sarah through his scrying crystal, and if the need arises, he acts either personally, through the use of his numerous hidden traps and servants all over the maze, or through his magical powers. Sarah, however, manages to pull herself up from every fall, which simultaneously angers the Goblin King and makes the admiration for her grow in him even more. He finally attempts to cut her way completely, though a poison that made her fall into a slumber, during which Jareth seemed to enact what he really wished to do with her, to show his romantic and loving side. We indeed see that Sarah may hold the same feelings for Jareth as well, as she agrees to be taken to a dance with the sorcerer, until a ticking of a ballroom clock reminds her of what she's really doing here and breaks the curse, waking her up. After she continues going forward, Jareth seems visibly hurt, but doesn't stop himself from throwing more and more physical and psychological logs under Sarah's feet, many times bordering on almost killing her indirectly. This dichotomy in Jareth's action may indicate some sort of emotional imbalance, as he both wants to love Sarah and to kill her, to keep her safe and by his side, as well as to hurt her mentally and physically. When Sarah finally arrives to Jareth's castle, she demands his promise to be fulfilled and her brother to be returned to her. Jareth though offers a third option, for Sarah to stay with him and rule by his side as his queen and lover. Sarah, however, denies and declares that Jareth has no power over her, which breaks his influence and sends her and her brother away to their home safely. Kind of bittersweet.